today's episode, I'm talking with Robin, who has led an absolutely extraordinary life. He has faced immense adversity, and at any point, he could have easily thrown his hands up in the air and said, I give up. I've had a bad deal. I just don't have the same advantages that other people have, so why should I even try? But he didn't. Instead, he looked inward, he looked at what he could do, found that fire inside himself, and he persevered, and he turned that adversity into the points that really allowed him to succeed in life and allowed other people around him to be able to thrive. I find this to be a very common trait in those who refuse to be a victim. Those who will look at adversity and say, bring it on. It is absolutely mind-boggling what we are able to accomplish when we put our mind to it and we truly understand the level of personal agency that each and every one of us has. If you follow me on social media, I have a picture posted there. This is a picture that Robin sent me and he autographed. It's a picture of the 1980 Iranian Embassy Siege that really skyrocketed the SAS into the public eye. This is the first time on a global scale that the SAS was known and seen for what they're able to do. For anyone who's been into the Silvercore studio, they're going to see other pictures and memorabilia and books and knives and maps and all sorts of different items that past podcast guests have given me as mementos and reminders of the conversations that we've had. Now, I don't place a lot of value in things, but I do place a lot of value in relationships. And every time I look at these things that are up there, it reminds me of the relationships and the connections that we're able to form in a large part due to this podcast. If you're looking to deepen your connection with others, if you're looking to deepen your connection with your natural environment, interacting with the Silvercore podcast is one way for people in the community to be able to meet each other and learn from each other. Another way is the Silvercore Club, specifically designed to help people deepen their connection with the natural environment. Club members receive insurance, they receive free online training and discounts on courses and deep discounts on many of the industry partners that are affiliated with the Silvercore Club. And if you wanted to learn more about that, go to silvercore.ca/club. Now, without further ado, let's get on with this podcast. I'm joined today by an extraordinary guest whose life reads like a blockbuster action movie, but with the depth and grip that only real experience can bring. Serving with the 22nd SAS, he was involved in one of the most iconic and daring military operations of the 20th century, the Iranian Embassy Siege. He's a martial arts expert, author, motivational speaker, and relentless advocate for veterans. Welcome to the Silvercore podcast, Robin Horsfall.
Thanks, Travis. Great to be here.
You know, I picked up your book here, Fighting Scared, came in last Friday, and I had a difficult time putting it down. What a fantastic read. I was blown away by your ability to relay difficult experiences in an extremely understandable and relatable way. And you weave into that lessons of morality and fortitude. You really are a gifted teacher.
Thank you. It's one of the joys of being able to have an audience is to be able to impart knowledge that's valuable to the listener or to the reader. Very often, a lot of us have got a story, but we never have a forum to share it with. And I've had that privilege. So it's, I wrote Fighting Scared in 2002. And it took me 6 months. And I didn't write it for any other reason than I wanted to tell the story about a young, bullied, insecure, unpopular kid from a broken home, classic sort of scenario, who joins the army at 15 to get away, to escape, and moves on from there. I've had people get in touch with me over the years who have read that book and have said, you know, I thought there was something wrong with me until I read your story, and I realized there was something wrong with every bugger else, you know.
Well, I like that. And I honestly, reading through it, I found it very relatable. The experiences that you're talking about, the way that you convey it, just very human emotions, insecurities, just self-esteem, self-worth, feeling afraid, being bullied, and they seem to be um, sort of a constant thread throughout your life.
Yeah. Well, when I was born, I didn't know my father because my father was in prison and he was a thief. So I didn't know him. My mother and he divorced when I was 7 years old, and she married a man called Jeffrey Horsfall who adopted me and gave me his name. So for the first 7 years of my life, I never had a male role model in my life. And a lot of people say that, you know, that's that first 7 years that's so important in your personal development. And when Jeffrey Horsfall came into my life, my stepfather, he'd never had a child and I'd never had a father. And consequently, we clashed, neither knowing how to deal with the situation. And his method was to beat me into silence. And when you beat somebody into silence, you stunt their development. You uh, you take away their ability to negotiate. You take away their ability to make friends because they're fearful of all authority figures. And so you become sullen and distant from people, and of course that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy
Mm,
because you're distant and weird, and you're frightened of people, and so they don't like you because they think you don't like them, and so the system carries on. And it took me many years to understand that I needed to change myself if I was ever going to have any friends in the world. That's for sure. And you know that's the reason you get isolated, intimidated, picked on, bullied, is because you struggle to make friends, you struggle to communicate. And the reason I think, for my particular case, was because I had my voice stolen from me by being beaten into silence.
mm. I see some common threads of sort of an oppositional defiance disorder. Now, I have no background in any clinical diagnosis. Well, I'll just lean on things that I've had to deal with in the past. But
Yeah.
ADHD, oppositional defiance disorder, maybe RSD. What do they call it? Rejection sensitivity dysmorphia, where you figure, oh, they're going to dislike me, so I'll just avoid them to begin with.
Yes, I agree with that one entirely. I mean, I sometimes I think the way I communicate is I try to simplify everything I possibly can. When people put long, laborious labels on something, it makes it sound like a prescription. In reality, you can get right back to the simple facts and say, you know, I had my voice beaten out of me. I did actually resent all authority figures. I was frightened of them. And when you start putting long labels on things, it makes you sound as if you're ill. And you're not ill.
Right.
You're just dealing with adversity in the only way you know how.
I like that. There's a lot of people that have these labels and they'll just marry themselves to the label. And they're like,
Mm,
oh, I'm like this because of whatever the label
yeah,
might be. Well, no, the label is just something there to help describe what you're going through. And you're like this right now. It doesn't mean you have to be like that in the future. And if you
that's right.
discipline yourself knowing about that label, maybe you can
Yeah.
comport yourself differently in the future.
Yeah, the only thing in the world that any of us have the power to change is ourselves. We can't
Yes.
change other people. We
Yes.
can set an example that other people might try to follow, but we can only change ourselves. So there's something wrong in your life and you blame somebody else. You can't change them.
Mm,
You can't change your wife. You can't change your kids. You can't change your friends. You can't change. All you can do is change yourself and make changes in yourself, and that's it. Um, take a hypothetical example, somebody who has a problem with alcohol and decides, okay, I'm not going to drink anymore. That's a
mm,
choice. I take
mm,
drugs, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm violent, I've decided I'm not going to be anymore. It's your decision.
mm.
And when you take responsibility for your own actions and your own behavior, you can achieve a great deal. When you spend your life blaming your childhood, blaming your parents, blaming your friends, blaming your wife, blaming somebody, you never really get to the core of the problem, and the core of the problems in yourself. The greatest battle you ever have is the war with yourself, without a doubt.
Yes. Well, you would, in your book, anyways, talk about going out into the woods and fishing and camping and using the wilderness as a means to be able to, I guess, center yourself or maybe escape. Is that something that you still do?
Yeah, I think two things. I think yes, it was an escape. I do when you have to learn to cope when you are unpopular.
Mm,
And so being happy in your own company is quite a good way of dealing with that. So get away from everybody that's a problem in your life and sit by a lake and go fishing or go walking over the mountains and um, you know enjoy that particular style of life can be very 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 rewarding because you're filling your self-esteem from another direction. You're not relying on other people to tell you how good you are. You're proving it to yourself.
mm,
So, and I still live in the mountains. I still love the wilds, but I've had some health issues over the last few years, and so walking along beaches which are nice and flat is is about the toughest exercise I can cope with these days. Um, but yeah, I still love the outdoors. I still love the lakes and the fishing and the trees and being out there alone. Well, as I got older, I started taking my kids with me, and then eventually my grandchildren with me. And on the last occasion I went up the mountains, I went up with two of my grandchildren and my oldest son Alex and me to a place that I'd first gone to with my youngest brother when he was 14
wow.
and called Garwinival Reservoir in the Welsh Black Mountains. And and I went back there with my son and two of my grandsons, and we camped in exactly the same place. And we built a stone urn, and we slept, and we shared a big cup of cocoa by the lake, and
Wow.
those things, they stay with you forever because it's not the gifts you buy your children that matter. It's the things you do with your children. Nobody remembers the Christmas presents they got, or
Mm-mm.
rarely. They remember the fact that Daddy played ball with me in the garden on Christmas Day, or threw snowballs at me or something. They remember that, but they don't
Mm-hmm.
remember the gifts. The gifts don't mean as much as the sharing of life and time.
I resonate with that. In our family, we're not big gift givers with my wife and my kids. It's experiences that we want to have. If we
Yeah,
have money that we can put aside towards something, it's what can we experience as a family and as a group. And I truly believe as long as I got my mind is healthy and got my memories with me, then there's no other gift that would be better than that. And even if I lose that, at least they can carry it forward.
that's right. I had a very good friend called Mick Lee, who was a paratrooper with me, older than me. And when I had my first son, Alex, he was 2 years old. And Mick said, "How's that boy of yours?" I said, "It's great. It's wonderful. It's fantastic." He said, "You buy him a ball?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You play ball with him?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "That's good. You got to play ball with him.
Mm,
That's the point."
that's the whole point of the thing.
Yeah.
Now, we're talking off air here a bit, and was it 5 great-grandchildren that you have?
7.
7! I got that wrong,
Yeah.
7
Yeah.
great-grandchildren.
Yeah.
Man, that's you've got a heck of an extended family now.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you became a father, what was that like, given the fact that your experience of your example that you had was, non-existent from your biological father and quite difficult and strained with your adoptive father.
Well, I met the most wonderful woman when I was 21, and she was 20, and she had two baby girls at the time, and she was going through a divorce. And I was the classic lone wolf at that time. I was doing selection for 22nd Special Air Service. I'd been a soldier from the age of 15 years, and bearing in mind my background, I was the archetypal soldier. I was hard. I hated the world. I would have killed anybody for my country. in defense of my country. I loved being a soldier. That was where I got all my self-esteem. My mother had died after divorcing my stepfather, so the army was my home. And I met this woman, and she saw right through me. And I give her credit for giving me back my humanity. She got into the cage with the lone wolf and tickled its ears. And she would say, "I know we'll never get married. I know you love the army, and but if we ever did," and 3 years later we did get married, and we've been together for since 1978. So what's that? 47 years this
47
November.
years.
Yeah, yeah,
You give her a lot of credit as well in the book Fighting Scared for it not just being a retelling of facts, but rather helping have the emotional side and
yeah.
the depth to it.
When I started writing Fighting Scared, it was a story I desperately wanted to tell, and I did the first couple of chapters, and I showed it to her, and she had a read, and she came back to me, and she held it out to me, and she said, I said, "What do you think?" She said, "This is shit."
Awesome.
What do you mean? What do you mean? She's just a report. It's just a series of facts, one after the other. What happened when it happened is like a military report. She said, "Where's the color? You know,
Mm,
what was the sun shining through your mother's window when you said goodbye? And how did you feel?" And she gradually got me to sit down and write the book properly. And there were tears on the paper sometimes
mm,
because there was a catharsis with it. You know, there was an emptying of the soul
mm,
into that story, and I think that's why it's the book is actually 22 years old now, and
mm-hmm,
it still sells really well. And I think because it resonates with an awful lot of people. It's not the hard man gas and bash 'em and smash 'em story that is so popular. It's
mm-hmm.
a personal development story, and it takes you from this place of misfortune in many ways to a place of relative success and happiness being the success more than anything else.
Did you get heat from the army from or from the UK government for fear of spilling secrets or
Well, no, there are no secrets in there to start with. There are the SAS part of my life is only 6 years.
Mhm,
So it's a piece of the story, and we did put the book through the Ministry of Defence first, and they asked me to make two minor changes from the book. One because somebody would have been too easily identified,
mm,
and the other because I'd mentioned a tactic that had been my suggestion in the Falklands War, that could have been useful to somebody who'd never thought of it.
got
So
it.
I removed those two small pieces, and we didn't have to go to them, but it was the right thing to do, and so I removed those two small excerpts from the book. But outside of that, no, I didn't get any heat. I, if there's anything that's secret, you don't go, "Oh my God, I can't talk about that." You just go, "Oh, I don't know."
Yeah, that's it. It's just yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Just don't say anything.
that's
Uh,
it.
so you got in 15 years old and you're a para and what I thought was really interesting was a lot of people will go for SAS selection because this is the pinnacle. This is what they want to do. They've got it built up in their mind. This is some great thing. But you went and did it sort of to flip your nose up at the authorities and say, I'm not going back here. I got a workaround. I think I'll just try out for the SAS.
The first 2 years of my service were called junior service,
Okay.
and so that's you're full-time soldier, but you're not allowed in operations, and it's like a military college.
Mm,
You're there for 2.25 years until you're old enough to join your adult unit, which it was then at the age of 17 and a half. And I went to the parachute regiment, and my battalion was the second battalion, the parachute regiment, and that was great. When my mother died, she was 37 years old. She died of cancer, and as I said, the army became my life, and I was transferred to stay in the UK to a special anti-tank unit called the Vigilant Platoon, and it was a guided missile anti-tank weapon. And a new anti-tank weapon came in 1977, called Milan, which was going to replace us. So they were going to disband the unit. And I said, look, I want to go back to the 2nd Battalion. It was my parent battalion. And they said, well, you're going to stay with the 1st Battalion. And I didn't want to do that. And
Mm.
they said, well, you'll do as you're damn well told. And so, as you say, just to cock a snoot at authority, I said, well, I know there's something you can't stop me doing. So I went to the battalion clerk's office and asked for the papers to volunteer for the Special Air Service. Well, you had to have 3 years of adult service, and I just had 3 years of adult service,
Mm.
plus the 2 years of boy service. And there was a Yorkshireman at the back of the clerk's office, and he said, I don't know why you're going to do that, Horsfall. He said, you're far too young. You'll be back with your tail between your legs. And and he was wrong, I'm glad to say. And I had to have 2 goes at it, but I got through on the second attempt.
Well, you voluntarily took yourself out on the first go.
Well, yeah, I SAS selection lasts a whole year,
Mm.
and the first month is in the mountains, with the last 5 days called Test Week. And test week is 5 days marching alone with increasing weights on your back, which begin at 35 pounds and extend up every day by 5 until you're carrying 55 on the 5th day. And the distance begins at 18 miles, and on the 5th day, it gets up, the last day is 40 miles.
Mm.
And you do this alone with no help, no guidance. You go checkpoint to checkpoint, check in, move on to the next place. And the first time I did it, I got to day 4 and it was raining. I was alone. I'd The weight was dug 2 ulcers into my kidney areas of my back, and
Mm.
they were bleeding and painful. And psychologically, it just got to me, and I started thinking about the 40 miler on the next day and returned to the previous checkpoint and called it a day and thought I would be returned to unit the next morning.
Mm.
But the major called me in and said, look, we think you've got potential. You do well. Do you want to stay another 4 months and try again in January 1979? I was it? No, 79. And I said, yeah, absolutely. And they kept me on. And there's 2 pictures of me and 2 photographs. One is me of the slightly chubby faced young 21-year-old on the first selection who fails.
Mm.
And one of me is 4 months later when I've been getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, going to the swimming pool, swimming 1,000 meters, going having breakfast, going out doing an 8 mile run with boots on over the hills, coming back, working all day, and doing that as a routine. And when I had time, being up the mountains, and the difference between the two looks like a young chubby kid and an athlete.
Wow.
I look older, I look stronger, my neck's thicker. You can see the difference. I was ready for it the second time. And on the second occasion, only 8 of us passed. But the idea that people have from some TV shows is that you're cajoled and chased and bullied and pushed. That's not the case at all. You're already a trained soldier. You're just given a task to do, and there's the time. Off you go. And if you don't succeed, then you get on, you go back the next morning. Nobody shouts, nobody bullies, nobody pushes. It's just a task. Can you achieve it alone without any
Mm.
help? And the selection process, as I say, last year, is you finish that mountain phase and then you go on to continuation training, most of which is in the jungle. And you work as 5-man patrols in the jungle for a month. And then you come back from that, you do a combat survival instructor's course. And in the last week of that, you're chased across the countryside by 2 battalions of soldiers, and you have to escape for a week, and then you get captured. And then, if you're not already a paratrooper, you do parachute training, and then you join your squadron and get your cap badge, but you're on probation, and you have to
Mm.
join. You have to pass a personal skill and a troop skill in the next 6 months. And my personal skill was as a paramedic, and my troop skill was as a mountain climber. And at the end of that 12-month period, first 12-month period, if they like you, you can stay for another 2 years. So there's a constant pressure to succeed, but to succeed as an individual.
I think, well, do you think that the fact that you had difficulty relating with people as you're growing up, difficulty making friends, puts you in a prime position to be effective as an SAS soldier? but also possibly a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it gave me the advantages of being able to function alone and not need the support of others.
Mm,
But it still made it difficult for me to succeed because what I discovered later in my career was that people very often don't get promoted on their merits. They get promoted on their popularity,
mm,
especially in an institution, which is probably why I've been self-employed for the last 25 years. Um, I'm a lousy employee, but I'm a damn good boss, especially when I'm the only employee.
yep.
But yeah, I like working alone. The other place that it really, really helped was when I became a Royal Marine sniper. Now, I say
Mm,
a Royal Marine sniper, it means I was trained by the Royal Marines to be a sniper,
right.
and that kind of job suited me perfectly. Working alone, having a task to do, being completely self reliant, using the absolute pitch of your skills in fieldcraft in order to stay alive and to carry out a very difficult task. So there are places where it's an advantage, and there are places where it can be a big disadvantage too.
Do you enjoy being alone, or is it something that you've learned to enjoy?
I used to like being alone because it was an escape from being unpopular.
Mm,
Um, I have times now, I'm 67 now, I have times where I want to get away for a while and just be alone, just
mm.
walk, just be in the hills, just sit by a lake. But I take all my comfort from, well, nearly all my comfort from my family. So I'm not away for very long because I miss them as soon as I am.
I can relate to that. The growing up, you weren't a typically aggressive individual from what I've been reading here. Aggression wasn't something that seemed to come normal to you, but you taught yourself to be incredibly aggressive.
Scotsman taught me to be incredibly aggressive.
Mm,
When I joined the second battalion, um, nearly half the battalion were jocks. They were Scotsmen,
mm,
and they taught me a level of aggression that is unsurpassed, absolutely unsurpassed anywhere in the world. And the point about being a paratrooper is it doesn't matter what your skills are. If you're not prepared to fight, then you shouldn't be there.
mm,
And they taught me how to fight, and how to fight in a manner that kept you alive, and a manner that allowed you to survive among men in with very tough men in very difficult circumstances. And sometimes I felt that I was pretending to be like them. And then later I realized, I think later, when I say later, I'm talking about by the time I was about 20, 21, I realized that they'd made me like them without any doubt at all.
mm.
Um, yeah, yeah, keen and mean, that's for sure.
Do you find that difficult to turn off?
Um, as I say, my wife was a big part of that, but it was part of my job as a soldier, and it made me a better soldier as well. Now, I would regard myself as quite a softie in a sense, in the fact as we get older, we struggle to shield ourselves as well as the love that we have for other people is more obvious,
Mm.
and we're more confident showing it. But that nasty person is still in there, and he's still capable of coming out when the time is appropriate and when it's needed, not for anger, but for protection of others, for survival, things like that. Yeah, it's still there.
What was it like when you first had your kids and were figuring out how to be a father? Did that aggression come out? Did you repeat any of the mistakes of others?
No, absolutely the opposite. My
Mm,
bad experiences with my own stepfather, and he wasn't all bad. Don't get me wrong. There were a lot of good things about him you'll get from the book,
that's right.
but he those those bad experiences that I had, I used them to make sure they didn't happen to my kids.
Mm.
And I also used them to help develop children when I started my martial arts schools later on, because I think a person who is genuinely strong and disciplined, self-disciplined, will eventually become a much kinder person. It's insecure, unhappy, ill-disciplined, frightened people that are vicious. And I
Mm.
think a certain element of my viciousness as a young man came from the fact that I was frightened, which is why the book's called Fighting Scared. As Heather said to me once, why were you fighting so much? I said I was scared of getting hurt.
Mm. Well, if you don't mind, I'll read a quick section out of the book just so the audience gets a bit of a flavor for what this is about, and maybe we can talk about it. I gripped my MP5 in both hands and thumbed the safety catch, assuring myself once again that it was off. The only sounds I could hear were the static hissing in my earpiece and the sound of my heart pounding in my ears. My greatest fear now was of making a mistake that might endanger a life, especially mine. My mind raced. Watch the windows, Robin. What do I do if someone looks out now? Don't rush. Is my pistol still in my holster? Where's my partner? The police dogs, which were being held back just inside the doors of the college, began to feel the tension in their handlers and started barking and howling. Why don't you shut the bastard dogs up? I thought. The fear that had for so long been my greatest enemy welled up inside me like a balloon, waiting to escape from my throat. Hello, I thought. I'm glad you're here. Without you, I wouldn't be functioning at my best. I need to be scared to be alert. The smallest sounds were magnified and time seemed to slow down. Around me, my team members moved into position calmly and without undue haste. Only 7 years earlier, I had been a frightened young man on the brink of adventure, bullied and scared. Now I was walking forward into a firefight, the fear under control, my commitment to the task complete, in the knowledge that I was ready, that I was the best man for the job.
Sounds great when you read it.
Well, that's those are your words. Those are your
Yeah,
words.
it's surprising when somebody reads something to you and you think, oh, wow, I wrote that.
Yeah, you did. It's anybody who wants to read the rest is welcome to go get Fighting Scared. But that was 1980. Was it May 5th,
May the
1980?
5th, 1980, in London at the
Yeah.
Iranian Embassy. Yeah. Um, we were approaching our entry points. There were 48 of us that entered the building. There were 5 floors, 55 rooms. So we had an 8-man team for each floor, including the basement. And one of the guys who was abseiling down the back of the building, his foot went through a window and he got his gloves stuck in his abseil harness and he got jammed there just above the window. And I was beneath him. And the approach was obviously compromised by the broken window. So the commander gave the go early and we didn't have time to lay the explosives on the back door. So my partner went in with an 8-pound sledgehammer and took the back doors out. And the guys on the front window with the famous footage, they planted a frame charge on the window and initiated it when they were only a couple of feet away from it and took the windows out. And the guys went in from all the 8 different entry points. And I remember above me, Tom was burning on his rope because the guys who had gone past him had gone in with their flashbangs, their stun grenades, and set fire to the curtains. And so the curtains were burning up. Tom's hanging above the window and turning into the best barbecue in town. And he's kicking himself out away from the flames, but his glove has got caught on the pressure switch of his radio. So he's cut out all the communications because he's on send.
Mm.
And all you can hear is him screaming as he's burning. And there's bullets coming through the window outwards from the inside above my head. And I'm watching him burn and thinking, well, there's nothing I can do. Get on with your job. On the roof, the guys are trying to cut the rope under tension, but they've got to get it on the inswing so he lands on the balcony and doesn't drop 30 feet onto the concrete, which they succeed in doing. Meanwhile, beneath him, Tommy Palmer's gone in the window, his head's caught fire, he's gone back out, taken off his gas mask, thrown it away, gone back into the gas without a gas mask to carry on his mission, and killed 2 of the terrorists. Tom's down, his legs are burnt, he goes in and carries on his mission on the ground floor. I go in, and there's a chain of troops already. from the ground floor upwards. And one of the hostages come down, the policeman Trevor Locke, and he's passed out. And then the other hostages start to follow. And then there's a scuffle on the stairs, and somebody gets butt swiped and staggers on the stairs, and somebody shouts, "He's a terrorist!" And a terrorist comes clear at the bottom of the stairs holding a hand grenade. And one of my colleagues who was just in front of him shot him 24 times. And at the same time, I fired 3 rounds from 5 meters away, and he died, and the pin was still in the grenade. And we took everybody out. One of the terrorists got out hidden amongst the hostages. In 7 minutes, we rescued 19 people alive. One was killed by the terrorists during the entry. We killed 5 terrorists and we captured one. 7 minutes. So it was a very famous piece of British history.
No kidding. How did your life change after that?
Things changed because nobody had heard of the SAS up to that point. You know, they were Fred Carno's army in darkest Herefordshire, and nobody knew very much about us. Our main role at that time was counter-terrorism and working undercover in Northern Ireland. So we were not a secret service, a regular part of the British Army, but the secrecy came from the fact that we were targets for provisional IRA terrorists, and so we had to remain anonymous during that period of threat. Um, so for a while, I think the world, everybody wanted to know us, everybody wanted to talk about us. We had to remain anonymous, and some people started to believe their own press. And
Hmm.
because you're special at one thing, it doesn't mean you're special at everything. So we were special soldiers, and all of a sudden, everybody thought that we were Mr. Miyagi and we knew the secrets of life. Um, and it took a while for that to settle down and to move on and get on with life again.
I think you just got the YouTube thumbnail right there. Ex-SAS soldier speaks about secrets of life. Done. Not a
Speaks
lie
about not being Mr. Miyagi.
about not being Mr. Miyagi. So you were talking to the book about getting kind of paraded around afterwards, kind of like a bit of a circus show, and everyone was interested. And I think
Yeah.
Princess Diana, you guys may have been responsible for her sleek new short swept back haircut.
Yeah, one of the things that happened afterwards, of course, is every VIP in the country wanted the special day out to visit the Special Air Service and see how they trained and functioned.
Hmm.
And so King Charles now, Prince Charles then, and Lady Diana Spencer, his wife, Princess Diana, they came to visit one day, and we said, okay, look, would you like to drive the Range Rovers up to the building? We'll throw the ladders up and do our pretend assault on the building. We got them some black overalls, and and off they did. But unbeknown to us, before she drove the vehicle up, Princess Diana undid the window slightly to let some air into the window.
Hmm.
So when the flashbangs went off, the pyrotechnics set light to the lacquer on her hair. So one of my friends saw that her hair was burning, so he opened the door, pulled her out, slapped her around the head, put the flames out. I thought, I'll have a little bit of that, join in. You don't get a chance to slap a princess every day. And we put the flames out. Her hair was singed, but she wasn't burned on the skin. But it was a bit scary for her. And during the lunch break, we got a hairdresser from Hereford to come and tidy up her hair. And she'd had this round shaped cut up to that time. And the next day, Vogue magazine had the next week. Vogue magazine had photographs of Princess Diana's amazing new page boy haircut with the trimmed back sides,
Yep.
and everybody went wild, and women all over the world copied it,
Yep.
and they never realised that haircut was courtesy of the Special Air Service.
I thought that was a pretty funny anecdote.
Yeah,
Uh, I wasn't aware of a number of things. One of them, I wasn't aware that the operation had on the embassy had it was compromised and had to start sooner than it was supposed to. So that
yeah.
was something that was new information for me. But One thing that I thought was really interesting was following it up. You're back with the boys, everyone's having a beer, and the camaraderie that you were hoping for, you were seeing. You're writing about that there is a lack of some camaraderie that you were kind of hoping to see at that time.
Yeah, I think when you select people to be individuals at the very peak of their abilities,
Mm,
highly skilled, highly motivated, with an air of paranoia that you're not allowed to fail. Everybody thinks they should be in charge. Everybody thinks they know best. So with people like that, you have to keep them incredibly busy to stop them turning inwards upon each other. When you get standard troops or even special troops like paratroopers and Marines, um, they're trained in the buddy system. Always support the weakest man.
mm,
But in special forces, there really isn't allowed to be anybody weak. Um, and so we got back, and people started to criticize each other. And some of that, I think, was led by the fact that I think we hoped for when we got back was some kind of unit citation,
mm,
maybe a little flash you could wear to say you were one of the 60 guys that were in that squadron on that day and did that job. Nothing,
mm.
nothing too big deal. Just that special little flash to you. But what the government did, they turned around and said, "Okay, here's a handful of medals given to 6 people." And so they had to select 6 people from a team that had
Yeah.
functioned as a team, as a unit, and decide who to give them to. And of course, that created certain resentments and bad feelings, and it didn't help anybody in any shape or form in any
Mm,
way. And it opened up a bit of a can of worms and created a few enemies that in some people never really got over.
mm,
Um, they're a special kind. They're thoroughbreds. You get a load of ponies and stick them in a field together, they'll run around. You get a couple of thoroughbreds and stick a stallion in there as well. They're going to kick shit out of each other.
mm.
So you've got to keep them busy. You've got to keep them running. You've got to keep them tired and fed. And most of my 6 years, looking back, was awesomely busy. It
Mm.
never really stopped.
You mentioned something there about failure, and I've read in other places your ideas on failure or not being allowed to fail, which I think resonates with today's generation as well. Could I hear your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in environments where I was inspired by people who understood that they can help your development and help you to grow. And you learn more from failure than you ever do from success.
Mm,
And then I had that 6 years where I lived in an environment where, especially being a person who lacked the charisma and popularity that helped, where it was even more important for me not to fail,
hmm,
because if I did fail, it would be used against me straight away. There'd be no element of forgiveness. And so um, what that taught me was to make sure that I didn't put anybody else in the same position that I'd been in myself, and that I understood that failure is a necessary part of the learning process. You
mm,
have to get it wrong before you get it right. And we all have to do that. And confusion is a natural part of the learning process as well. A lot of young people and adults get to a certain point in learning where they get confused and then they convince themselves that they can't do it, and
mm,
convincing them as a teacher that this is absolutely normal and just to keep plodding forward, and eventually that confusion will disappear and the process will begin, and you will start to absorb the language, the skill, the ability that you're searching for. So a lot, I mean, adversity can create character. It can create good and bad character.
mm,
um, and we're very much creatures that love to follow a leader, and we'll imitate our leaders. We'll imitate people we admire. So if we admire a bully, we'll start to behave like a bully.
mm.
And if we admire somebody who inspires us because they're the absolute opposite, what we might refer to as a hero, then we'll imitate that person as well. And that's what we should all aspire to.
It's interesting you bring up the word hero because when we were talking before, that was one word that you don't feel comfortable with.
Mm.
And I guess there would be two questions. Like one, I do get the sense of why you would not feel comfortable with that. You're a very humble and modest individual. But in your sense of the word hero, what would be a hero?
A hero is somebody that willingly puts themselves into danger, life-threatening danger, or even career-threatening danger for the benefit of somebody else with no possible reward to themselves. That, I think, is how I regard the classical form of hero and the classical form of courage as well. The reason I shy away from the word a lot is because it's misused. It's used about footballers, it's used about politicians, it's used about everybody that somebody wants to put on a pedestal and say, oh, great, wasn't this person wonderful? And it may be for something as good as making a nice cake. Um, and so it dilutes the power of the word.
Mm.
And when I have been very kindly referred to in that way, what flashes through my head is a soccer player who scored a
Fair
goal.
enough. Fair
Yeah.
enough. You spoke about Pat the cook as a bit of a
Yes.
revenge story. Is that something that
Yeah.
you'd want to talk about?
Well, yeah, I think it was an important part of my life. I was, how old would I have been? 19 or 20, 1977. So yeah, 20. Um, I'd never been a drinker. I found very early in my life that there's two things that I couldn't do very well if I was drunk. The first one was fight, and the second one starts with F as well. And so I got drunk very quickly. They used to call me 2 Pint Bob. 2 pints and I was drunk. So I discovered cars and girls, which far more fun, and and kept myself away from the drinking parties. Um, but I was in Dekelia in Cyprus in 1977, and I went back from the bar early, went to bed alone in a large room with about 24 beds in, and two guys came in drunk and attacked me in my bed for fun, beat me with broom handles, attacked me with a razor, broke my jaw, dislocated my jaw on the other side, broke my ribs, broke my fingers, um, broke my upper bones on my cheeks, um, and um, and then dragged me in the showers to try and get me to recover. Beat my head against the tiles in the showers, threw me back in the bed bleeding, and covered me with a sheet. And when the other guys came back later that night, one of the corporals came and pulled the sheet off me because he thought I was snoring too loudly, and saw the blood and the mess, and I was struggling to breathe, and I was taken to hospital, intubated on the way to hospital, and I could pull the bruises apart of my eyes after about a week so that I could see my face, which was an oval of bruising. And after 6 weeks, I returned back to the United Kingdom. And one of the things that went through me at that time was, this will never happen to me again. Nobody will ever do this to me again. I will never give anybody the opportunity to do this to me again. And I became that archetypal, vicious, hit first, ask questions later person. I never ever picked on anybody without a good reason. But there was always somebody in the military looking for trouble. And if they were looking for it, boy, oh boy, I was prepared to give it to them first. The two people that attacked me, one was, as you mentioned, Paddy the cook, and he had bragged about it over the following year, and I'd seen him a couple of times in town, but never in appropriate time. And after a couple of years, I caught up with him at a party, and he stepped out the fire door to go to urinate, and I followed him. And he followed my example into hospital. The other guy, Bill King, Bill went to a mental institution and was held there for quite a long time. and then returned to the unit. And the first thing he did was he found me and profusely and humbly apologized to me. And I wasn't quite sure what to do about that. So I sort of nodded, shook his head, and walked away, rather confused, a bit bewildered. And life went on, and we didn't see each other. And then 30 years later, I was going to a reunion in a bar in Brecon to a place called the Blue Boar. And a guy jumped out in the street and grabbed me. And he said, Rob, it's me, Bill. And he looked wild in the eyes. And he said, mate, he said, I'm still sorry about what happened all those years ago. I'm still sorry. I'm still sorry. I kissed him on both cheeks and said, it's all right, Bill. And I just walked down the road. And so that was, I feel very good about that. I feel very good about that.
So how do you feel from one person to the other? How did it feel when you were able to exact that revenge on the individual compared to kissing the guy on the cheek and walking away?
Well, there's a huge difference in age, but they were
Okay.
both they were both very satisfying.
Okay. Excellent. So you had an interesting story of some time in the Falklands there and on Ascension Island and uh, gearing up for essentially a suicide mission.
Mm. Yeah, we Op Mikado, our job in the Falklands was to fly into Argentina, land on a runway in two C-130 Hercules aircraft, 60 of us dismount, and then take out the super étendard jets that were carrying the Exocet missiles that were sinking our capital ships, destroy them, and be killed or captured. There was no way home. There was no fuel. There was no return journey. My wife Heather was 8 months pregnant with our first son, Alex, and we got as far as Ascension Islands, ready to go. We got on the aircraft to leave, and Ronald Reagan put pressure on Margaret Thatcher not to extend the war onto the mainland because the main bulk of the British Armed Forces were doing so well and were advancing on Port Stanley. So eventually the mission was cancelled, and so that we could get involved in the war before it was over, we set off to fly down, and instead of going into Argentina, uh, one of the aircraft turned around and went back because the refueling nozzle broke, and we got there, 32 of us, and we jumped out the back of the C-130 into the sea, and the RAF had put parachutes onto containers which carried all our equipment, and the parachutes came off, and all our equipment went into the sea and nearly sank our own ships. And so we got picked up from the sea on board the ship. All our equipment had gone to the bottom of the ocean. We were trying to bodge together enough equipment to carry out a raiding mission on Port Stanley while the Paras and Marines were approaching from the other side, and the enemy surrendered. So they clearly heard that 30 members of the famous B Squadron arrived in the Falklands and decided to kill it before it was too late, with no kit and equipment. Very scary. The fact that we were prepared to go ahead and do that mission, um, without question, was important. But I'm glad it never happened.
Yeah, I mean, there there were times when you had voiced your not objections, maybe concerns, maybe suggestions for other ways that things could be done. How'd
Yeah.
that go over?
Well, when we got to Ascension Islands and the mission was delayed, we'd had time to gather more information.
Mm,
And we knew that we discovered that the Argentinians had surface to air missiles on Rio Grande and Ushuaia airports. So we were asking questions like, well, how the hell are we going to fly these two aircraft onto these runways if they've got surface to air missiles? Okay,
mm,
we've got a mission to do. We're going to get off and do that mission and accept the consequences. But what's the point of even trying if we're going to get blown out of the sky
mm,
before we even get there? And our brigadier, Peter de la Billiere, insisted that we do it his way. And we made other sensible suggestions like, look, okay, we've got to fly there. Let's parachute in maybe a few kilometers off the target, walk onto target, and hit them with guided missiles from a couple of kilometers out
mm.
and take out the jets that way when they're taxiing. but they didn't want to hear it. So that frustrated us a great deal because there we were trying to improve our chances of staying alive and still carry out a successful mission with no way home.
Mm,
But the people that were at the very top didn't want to hear it. So we were, that was frustrating. But we were
hmm.
still prepared to go and do it regardless.
Well, I think the most frustrating part would be those who would turn around and say that you weren't prepared or that it was cowardice that you're voicing these concerns.
No, well, Debillia was leaving the regiment just after the Falklands.
Mm,
He was going to be promoted to a major general, and so he would no longer be part of special forces. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, as a soldier, he was the archetypal leader and officer, brave, stubborn, brutal, and had a lot of respect. But in this particular case, again, but he he wasn't popular,
mm,
and in this particular case, he gave us damn good reason for it. Mate, I mean, a big part of that, as you say, was when we returned and we had a debrief. And when you have a debrief when you get back from a mission, the purpose of that debrief is to find out how you can do it better next time, how you can improve on it. And instead of that, they just said, "Oh, you guys were great, you guys are wonderful." And then Debillia and his valedictory speech when he was leaving, um, he um, he stood up and virtually accused us of being cowards for not wanting to do it his way.
mm,
And then he told a story about a Second World War major who had been stopped by the French resistance and told not to go down a particular road because the enemy were laying in ambush. And he went anyway. And we were expecting a punchline to this story where it was going to be, and he saved the day. But, and he said, well, and he drove into the ambush and got killed. Well, we just started laughing. We just think this is ridiculous. What a dumbass.
yeah.
And and he didn't get it. He didn't get it, and we wouldn't stop laughing until he got off the stage, and his replacement stepped up. At which second we went absolutely silent in
Mm,
respect for the new officer taking over.
mm.
So it was our way of poking our finger in his face and saying, "Get your ass out of here."
Message sent, message received.
Yeah.
You were then later put on the Royal Marine Sniper course, and we're pretty happy to be put on that. From what I
Mm.
understand, was
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Royal Marine Sniper Course. The Royal Marines were the only unit in the British Armed Forces that maintained the sniper skill qualification from the First World War onwards. Now, a lot of journalists misuse the word sniper.
mm,
They think anybody with some kind of small arm shooting from a distance they call them a sniper. They're not. Initially, they're a gunman, and if they're good at shooting, they're a marksman.
mm,
But they're not a sniper. A sniper is an expert in fieldcraft, an expert in camouflage, judging distance, map reading, air photography, recognizing the relief of the ground, being able to move invisibly, being able to shoot from an invisible position and then disappear and get away without being seen, be able to stalk an opponent without being seen, get close to an enemy and get away again. So the elements of fieldcraft are at its absolute peak
mm,
with a sniper. So a sniper is all of those things. He's the absolute peak of an infantry soldier's fieldcraft skills, and so it's misused. The word's misused a lot of the time. I wanted to go on that course so much, and I'd only been home from the Falklands a few weeks and thought, great, I've got a new baby boy. I'll get a rest. Nope, straight down to Royal Marines Lympstone and on this course. And yeah, it was absolutely incredible, and it was one of the things that I'm as proud of passing that with their two grades. The top grade was marksman, and the second grade was sniper.
mm.
4 of the 12 on the course passed it, and I was one of the two that got sniper marksman.
Wow.
And and I thought, right, I'm coming back with this. I'm coming back with this qualification. You can't take it away from me. The Royal Marines gave it to me. I'll get my promotion. Didn't happen um, because somebody turned around who didn't like me and said, "Ah, well, that's just coursemanship," whatever that means.
Yeah, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Well, Didn't it turn out that you were sent on that course? Maybe not as a prize, but as in the hopes that you would fail, and that'd be a excuse to RTU you?
Yeah, well, I had a disagreement with a sergeant when I was a trooper, and he'd taken me off an air fire control course that I wanted to do on the grounds that I wouldn't be there and I was doing something else. And the fact was that I thought he'd made a mistake. And so I complained and said, "Look, the course starts on Monday and I'm back on Friday." And he said, "Well, it's done now, and so it's not going to change."
Mm,
So when I arrived back on the Friday, I bumped into the 2IC of my company, and he said, "What's wrong with you? You got a face like thunder." And I told him, and he said, "You want me to do something?" I said, "No, no." I said, "Just make things worse." But
mm,
he ignored that, and he went and looked into it, and discovered that this guy had lied to the sergeant major to get his own guy on the course.
mm,
And 2 years later, he was the squadron sergeant major, and he made it his purpose in life to get me thrown out.
mm,
And they sent me on the Arabic course to. A lot of people failed it. I passed it. They put me on the Royal Marine Sniper course. I passed it. They put me on the Mountain Guides course to Chamonix, which is a 2 year course. And when they told me, I thought, oh, great, I'd love to do that. And they took me off it.
mm,
So, you know, what can you do? I actually believed at that time that all I had to do was keep doing my job better and better and better, and eventually it would be noticed.
mm.
But in an institution, it just takes one person, one rank higher than you, and they can screw your whole future up. And he succeeded in doing that.
Looking back now, knowing what you know now, are there different ways that you would have approached that?
I got into the SAS when I was 21, and one thing that Bosley, the clerk in the office, was right about was that I was too young.
Mm,
By the time I was 27, I had a little bit more wisdom about keeping my mouth shut in the right circumstances and not voicing an opinion, no matter how true I knew it to be. Um, I still struggle with that today. Um, I'm still a great fan of the truth, but I like to be able to support it
mm,
from a position of verifiable authority. But the age and wisdom. There are times when it's not going to hurt you to be diplomatically silent for a while and
mm,
find an alternative route to get to the same place. But I was very young, and that naivety played against me as well.
mm,
But I purchased my discharge from the army when I was 27, thinking I was going to be in for 22 years. I'd done 12 years, and it turned out to be one of the best things that could have ever happened to me looking back. So something bad happens in your life that can end up being a very positive thing later on. Leaving the military after 12 years freed me up to explore my true potential, to do other things, to have different experiences and go in different directions. And I don't think if I'd stayed in the military for 22, 24 years, um, that I would have achieved as much.
I agree. I agree. I think you would have been stifled.
Hmm.
Um, so from there, you went on and did some bodyguard work and a bit of mercenary work, and that's
Yeah.
um, an interesting thing to read about. Is there was one thing that I read and I thought was really interesting, and it says I was never quite the same again after Mozambique. I felt that I'd been tested, and I wished hardly that I hadn't.
Yeah. Mozambique was a infantry war. We had no support arms, no air cover, no insurance, no
Mm,
backup. We were taking men into combat. We're supposed to have been there as instructors, but you're in the war zone and end up being company commanders.
mm,
And I saw and experienced some pretty terrible things. And when I came home, I was home within 24 hours, 48 hours. So you're going from a place where children are starving, where people can be killed for a bunch of bananas, where a truck rolls over and 40 of your men are dead in one moment, simply because the driver made a mistake, where you've got yourself into very, very dangerous situations out of bravado and stupidity, and wished you hadn't. And then 24 hours later, you're home and you're looking at a video, and your wife's got a string outside the window with Welcome Home Daddy on it. And she's playing a video showing you Christmas, the Christmas you missed with the kids eating and wasting loads of food and toys lying all over the place. And you're not laughing and smiling. Um, you have this contrast of experiences of going from this place to a place where people are unhappy because their nanny took the day off, and they're traumatized. Um, and the milkman didn't deliver the milk, so they're extremely upset. And You haven't had time to make that transition. And it came out as anger and disinterest. And she recognized it straight away.
Mm.
And I didn't. But our life led to a crisis situation. And fortunately, I got counseling. And I must have been the counselor's uh, favorite subject, because he would start the clock and you got 45 minutes, and I would talk like a runaway gun for 45 minutes. And it's time up, Robin. Let's have a quick chat, and off you go. And after 12 weeks, I realized, yeah, okay, the world's shit. The bad things happen. And you can't change the world, but you can change yourself. And so I set about changing myself and rebuilding my family life, and with Heather's help, succeeded. And there's a lot of lessons to learn from that for lots of people who haven't necessarily been to war, but they've had some very upsetting experiences in their life, and they want somebody to blame, and sometimes there just isn't anybody to blame. I love that old American T-shirt that sold billions, which was "Shit happens," and it does.
Yeah.
And sometime in your lives there will be some kind of tragedy, unfortunately, even if it's the natural death of your parents, and you have to accept that. And acceptance is a word we don't use enough of.
Mm.
Sometimes it just happens.
Did you come to that conclusion on your own, or was that something that the counselor was able to elicit out of you?
No, I think the counselor just let me burn it out.
Mm.
He let me talk it out. He let me figure it out on my own. All he was a sounding board to let me go. I'm sure he got subjects where he needed to prompt something. He needed to light a fuse. With
Mm.
me, the fuse was burning when I walked through the door. All he had to do was just let it burn and give it a place to go, and yeah, sometimes you've just got to unload. You've
Mm.
just got to let it all go, talk it all out with somebody who's not going to offer an opinion back, who's not got a vested interest in your opinion, and let it and allow you to release everything. And when it's all out there, you've spilled your guts all over the floor. You can see what you've been eating.
Mm. I like that analogy. You know,
I just made that one up.
well, that's a good one. That's a good one. Um, a lot of people get stuck in this process of basically wearing or identifying with whatever the issue is they're being afflicted with in the moment. And there's a
Yeah,
lot of counselors and psychologists who aren't brave enough to help break that cycle. Rather, they will just have them go over and over and over again through it because there's sort of a cathartic process
yeah,
in these meetings, and there's money that comes from each one of these meetings, and
yeah.
um,
I
I
don't agree with some of that,
okay,
because I think sometimes it's like picking a scab. You just keep making it bleed. You just keep making it bleed.
right,
Yeah. Which is different from what I'm talking about. I just let me heal myself. Um, because again, it's back to that thing I said at the beginning. Only you can change yourself.
Mm,
It's a bit like, a guy who's an alcoholic or a drug addict. First of all, you have to accept that you are the problem,
mhm,
and then you can deal with it. Whether it's PTSD, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, whether it's violence, whatever it is, you have to start with you. I mean, I do counsel some individuals privately, without payment,
mm,
who are usually military veterans, but not always. Sometimes they're cancer victims, because I've had cancer. And and the first thing I say to them often is, well, what are you going to do about it? So you place the onus strictly on them straight away, because people tend to wear a badge of victimhood
mhm,
and say, uh, you know, it's your job to help me. Okay, well, yeah, maybe. Maybe it's my job to help you. Um, but providing you start by helping yourself, by you start by taking responsibility, you start by getting a job, by getting out of bed in the morning, by doing what you need to do, and I'll help you then. But I'm not
mhm,
going to get you out of bed.
mhm. Yeah, there's nothing you can actually do to help somebody. You can lead them by example,
Yeah,
but they have to help themselves. And once they've
that's it. You got it.
um,
Yeah.
so what do you do now to deal with when the demons come up, when things are getting difficult? What do you do now to deal with it?
Um, sometimes I have moments where I'm just watching TV or doing something innocuous, and I'll have a cry.
Mm,
um, Not a sob, but just just a moment
mm,
of welling up. It'll pass away.
yeah.
But I don't have many demons. I think I've exercised most of them. I have a great wife. I have an amazing family. I'm the oldest surviving member of my family now, and consequently, there's always somebody that's got a problem that they want. They either want advice or they want money, and I'm supposed to provide one of the two. So that keeps me busy and it keeps me feeling useful as well.
Mm,
Um, I've got four generations in the house at the moment. My daughter, my granddaughter, and my granddaughter's son. And they're going back next week, and it's been fun having them here while she had the baby. But the house will seem empty
mm,
next Tuesday when they've gone, until the next member of the family decides it's time to turn up at the house. And I hope it's not too long in between, because family's everything. When you get to a certain point in your life, family is everything. And if you're not fortunate enough to have family, then compensate with friends.
mm. At what point in your life did you truly realize that?
Don't think I realized it fully, as I'm still learning and discovering new things about myself and about life. So it's a process. The Japanese used to say that you're not really a man until you get past the age of 40.
Mm,
And you've got to get past the age of 40 before you understand what that means. Well, I'm 67 now.
yes. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that we should talk about?
Well, I spent 30 years of my life teaching children martial arts. I mentioned
Mm,
that earlier.
mhm,
And the karate was just the catalyst that allowed me to teach. It was the teaching that was the joy. It was the
mm,
imparting knowledge to others that's the joy. And I was taught to teach when I was a boy soldier, 6 months of teaching quotas, and and I it was vocational to me to stand in front of people, to impart knowledge, to help them, to benefit them, to train them. With the kids, it was about uh, teaching them to be strong and confident and kind and
mm,
capable of defending themselves, which made them able to stand up for their opinions in a much better way as they grew up. Um, we taught the children to teach. So rather than just teach them a skill, we taught them to teach the skill. Because if you teach, you understand a subject. You might know how to shoot a rifle, but can
mhm,
you teach somebody else how to shoot a rifle? If you can and take that responsibility, now you really understand the rifle. Um, it's the same in everything in life. And we would take 4-year olds, and when they'd been around 6 weeks or so, and a new kid arrived, we'd let the 4 year and 6 week kid show the new kid how to do certain things. So they
Mm.
pair off because you learn a hell of a lot more from your big brother than you ever did from your school teacher.
Uh-huh.
And so teaching is a wonderful is the best form of learning ever. I broke my neck when I was 54. I couldn't carry on teaching martial arts. And so I went to university as an undergraduate at the age of 56 and did creative writing and English literature and graduated when I was 59.
Wow.
I got cancer when I was 60, bladder cancer, and I had to have a major operation, and they took away my bladder and prostate and lymph nodes. And there's even a sunny side to that because I've got this bag now, and I never have to get up for a pee in the night. And and men of a certain age will know exactly what I'm talking about. Well, I've got this 2 liter bag that goes down the side of the bed, and I never have to get up for a pee. I can stay in bed and watch TV in the morning, So there's even a good side to that. So a lot of Fighting Scared, the book you showed there,
Mm.
is one of six, and it goes up to about the age of 45. But I'm sometimes thinking if I can find the time that I should write a sequel for the 45 to 67 period, which has a whole new range of stories. But I've got so many things I want to do. I'm not sure which one to do first.
Well, how did you break your neck?
I was training with my oldest son, Alex,
Mm.
karate training with my oldest son, Alex. And he was holding a big, heavy impact pad for me. And he's a big man.
Mm.
And I was showing this very powerful punch. And I was looking at the class. And what I should have done, I should have looked at the target and then hit it. So my neck was in the correct position. But
Mm.
my head was still here talking to the class when I hit this thing. And when you've developed like a professional boxer, when you've developed a punch to a degree and your body and all your applied physics of your physique are in exactly the right place, you're developing about 1.5 tons of impact into 2 square inches of two knuckles. And everything's set right. All that impact, all that kinetic energy is transmitted in, all that potential energy is transmitted into the target. Well, my neck was in the wrong position, and so some of it came out up here on
Mm.
C5 and broke one of the processes on my vertebra. And I wasn't paralyzed, but my neck is very, very weak. It's still very weak, and I lost some of the feeling in my left hand, and so I had to take a new direction in life. There's no good sitting around going, "Oh, I was a great martial artist once upon a time, and I had 1,000 students, and oh, poor me." I just, okay, what can I do? Well, I can't jump around, and I can't leap out of buildings, and I can't, stand on one leg anymore because my balance goes. So, but I can write and I
Mm-hmm.
can speak,
Mm-hmm.
and so I do corporate talks and talks for colleges and talks for kids about my personal experiences, about leadership, about overcoming adversity. If anybody ever wants me in Canada, you know where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And and so I still like being up there in front of everybody because teaching is essentially singing and dancing, you know. And your best teachers were the ones that entertained you, and the
Mm-hmm.
subjects you loved best at school were the ones that came from the best teachers, not because they were the best subjects.
Through teaching, you've enabled the children to have a voice, and you've
Mm.
basically become the mentor that you were looking for as a child.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think you put the finger right on the button there. Um, and I'd never ever thought of that, to be honest. But yeah, I think that's exactly what I am, the person that I didn't have. Yeah.
Well, there's a
There's a
lot
lot.
more that I'd love to chat with you about, and I'm sure we'll chat more in the future. But maybe that's a good place for us to wrap this podcast up. Unless there's any last words you'd like to say.
Yeah. Anybody wants to find me, robinhorsfall.com. Let's do the advertising. Every little counts. Thank you.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to put links in the bio, and I'm going to put links in the description, and Like I say, I'll hold them up here. So I've got Fighting Scared. Couldn't put that one down. Read that one in no time flat. We've got The Words of the Wise Old Paratrooper. More Words of the Wise Old Paratrooper. Last Words of the Wise Old Paratrooper. And I've started going through them. They're easy reads that are full of a lot of humor, some great wisdom, and it's something that will take more than one read to actually properly absorb. And I guess there's a couple more books that I
Yeah, there's Warrior Poet, A Soldier's Songs, which is an illustrated book of my poetry,
okay.
which is very academic and illustrated, and I'm very proud of that. But people don't buy poetry; so it's a labor of love. They quote it, but they don't buy it. And
Yeah,
my most recent one is Slava Ukraini Who Shares, which is about the first 2 years of the Russian-Ukraine war.
right.
Um, yeah, and that's my most recent one. Yeah.
And you're pretty vocal on a lot of world issues. When are you going to start your own podcast?
Yeah, I've got all the gear. I've had builders in my house since we moved in 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got my daughter in the attic room at the moment, which is going to be the podcast broadcasting studio.
There it is.
And it's another one of those things on the list.
You know what? That was the one thing when I went through all of this stuff. I thought Robin's going to start his own podcast, and it's going to be hugely successful. And I'm,
I
I'm
hope
glad.
so.
I'm glad. I'm glad you're doing that, Robin. Thank you so much for being on the Silvercore podcast. I really enjoyed this.
Thanks, Travis. You're a great interviewer.